It's time, and I think we should all go ahead and get started. Well, good morning, everyone. I really want to, it's my honor and privilege. My name is James Mao, and I am the president of the Covenant House, Texas Associate Board of Young Professionals. Before we get started, I want to give a big shout out and say hello to our youth who are tuned in and watching this morning. To the youth of Covenant House, Texas, each and every one of you guys is so special and amazing and unique in your own ways. You guys are the reason why our board does what we do. We love you all, and even during this coronavirus pandemic, we won't ever stop supporting you guys, no matter what. And for those of you guys who have joined us this morning, I want to thank you for taking time out of your morning to join our board for this amazing event. This event could not have happened without the amazing people who serve with me on the YP board. I first want to recognize the chair of the Special Events Committee, George Rant, for leading the planning of this event. George, if you want to go ahead and say hi to the people. George online?
You put him on the spot.
I'll put him on.
I'm excited to hear this panel and learn, so this will be fun, hopefully.
All right, thanks, George. I also want to thank the rest of the Special Events Committee for their relentless passion and ideas, to help this event come to fruition. You guys know who you are. Lastly, I also want to thank the Covenant House staff. I want to thank Felicia Broussard, Gabby King, and Erica Green for always providing their time and support to make our initiatives to help the youth very impactful and fun. So Gabby, Felicia, Erica, thank you guys so much. You make our events, amazing, and you make our impact that much stronger with the Covenant House youth and the organization. So for those who don't know us, Covenant House Texas' mission is to give homeless youth a safe haven, absolute respect, unconditional love, and a path to lasting independence, and make the dangers of youth homelessness a thing in the past. Our board has always been committed to supporting that mission, but our board is committed to something more this year. Our board is committed to being anti-racist and committed to ending racial injustice in our community. This panel is one of many events that our board is planning this year that represents our new commitment. This virtual panel comes in light of the recent tragic events that have occurred, from Ahmaud Arbery to George Floyd. Our panel's purpose is to openly discuss the change that needs to be made to achieve racial equality, not only in general, but for members of our Black community and our Black youth. It's also important to recognize that while we achieve this change, that we balance the important function that law enforcement provides to our communities and to our society. Most of all, this panel is for our amazing youth once again, who are curious and want to learn more about these very important issues at this very important conjuncture in our country. And with that being said, I want to introduce our moderator, Alvin Adjei, a former president of ours. Alvin?
Thank you, James, for a very kind introduction. Again, yes, my name is Alvin Adjei. I'll be the moderator for today. And I have been blessed to have the opportunity to be active with Covenant House. I was the president, the immediate past president, and looking forward to James, this president, and having a great year. And, we're having a great start off with this panel. Just a little bit about myself. So I am from Houston. I went to Notre Dame for undergrad and for law school. I was a prosecutor in Harris County District Attorney's Office, where I had the opportunity to serve with Audia Jones. And then I worked at Abraham Watkins doing civil work, primarily personal injury. And then now I have my practice along with my classmate, Reed Burritt, where we both work doing personal injury on the plaintiff side and criminal defense work. We have a great panel today. We have a lot of different and interesting perspectives that give a lot of information. And I know for me, the mark of a great panel is that I learned something new that I didn't know before. And so to kind of get to it, I'll give all the panelists, if you can just very briefly introduce yourselves, your name, your title, and a little bit of background information. Please try to keep it to within 2 minutes. And so I will give it to Constable Rosen.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate being a part of this panel. I think these are discussions that we need to be having, some of which are long overdue. And I have a very great affinity with Covenant House. Since being elected in 2013, I have collaborated with Covenant House. I have participated in so many things that they have going, and love the mission that they have. Love the residents that they have. I come over there and visit with them. We have worked collaboratively to take people, homeless people, youth off the street, and try to figure out a way to fix the problem that's there. I am a very progressive law enforcement person. We have programs that we started since the inception of me being in office to basically network and become closer to the community. The worst thing for my job is having a community or any member of society that doesn't trust us. And we have to do a better job of being more transparent. We have to do a better job of being more collaborative. We have to do educational things. And so from the inception, I've tried to do that, especially with our youth. I have a teen summit every year where we host about 1,000 at-risk youth, and we dialogue about our relationship. We have law enforcement, we have prosecutors, defense lawyers, social workers, celebrities, and I've done it every year, and it's the most powerful thing I can do. The youth get to come up and ask questions and things that they may have always wondered about, and we provide education, and most importantly, we learn from them of what we do that upsets them or mistreats them or in any way disrespects them. And we take that back to the office and integrate a lot of what we learn at these teen summits in our training. So it's a powerful, powerful thing. And I've been doing it since we first got here, because I believe we have to change the dialogue, especially with our youth, more than anything else. So I'm proud to be a part of this panel. You've got wonderful people on this panel that are highly educated and know exactly what's going on out in society. And I'm just privileged to be a part of that panel.
Thank you very much. Attorney Audia Jones.
Yep. So good morning, everybody. I will keep this brief. I want to say thank you to the Covenant House for having me here, especially to my former colleague, Alvin Adjei. And so welcome Constable Alan Rosen, to all the youth that are out there watching, and President James. So my name is my name is Audia Jones. I am a practicing attorney. I have my own firm where I handle personal injury and labor and employment issues. Prior to this, I actually ran for Harris County District Attorney. Probably say I was probably the youngest person and first Black female to ever run for District Attorney here in Harris County. But I ran on a very, very progressive platform, very aware of the intricacies of the system, having been a prosecutor myself. Having worked on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., where I served as a House Judiciary staffer for a Texas representative. So I got a chance to see how the laws were made and up close and personal. But it wasn't until I actually prosecutor where I saw there were a lot of issues that we have in our system. And so with my campaign, it was one that was part of the progressive movement across the country. We were represented by, endorsed by Bernie Sanders, John Legend, Shaun King, just to name a few people. Unfortunately, we came in runner-up, but I still am very much involved in speaking on panels to talk about what I believe are the real issues and things that we need to change in order to better our communities for the youth. So all of you that are in here watching, a lot of people don't know many of the facts. We spend millions of dollars on our criminal justice system, but we're not putting the same effort and money into mental health awareness or mental health treatment, drug treatment, education. So a lot of things that would alleviate the homeless issues that we are having. So I am looking forward to this panel. I'm looking forward to discussing it. I appreciate the way Constable Alan Rosen runs his precinct. He's definitely a great leader. And so look forward to talking about more, and hopefully you guys can take something away from what I say.
Thank you so much. Ms. Tylynn Preston?
Hey everyone, good morning. Can you hear me? Okay, great. So my name is Tylynn Preston. I am a social worker, clinical social worker, and the director of case management here at Covenant House. So a lot of my job really entails overseeing the services that are provided to the youth. So not only really focusing on just like the homelessness and making sure that they're connected to a stable destination after leaving the program, but really just being involved in all facets of the youth life. So we focus a lot on mental health. We're really strong at building relationships and so honestly, so for me, this is just a really important discussion because I think that a lot of times when these conversations are being had, we don't always have the people to be present and represented in the actual discussion. And so I'm not going to keep talking, but I'm going to let the people that I have here kind of introduce themselves as well as our youth to talk a little bit about like who they are and, you know, how they were selected for this.
My name is Chanin, Ollison. I am the mental health liaison. My name is Chanin Ollison. I'm the mental health liaison here at Covenant House. So I work with all of the youth and I schedule them for all their mental health appointments with psychiatry and therapy, and also connect them with outside resources. I'm also the trauma-informed care trainer here at the agency. So I train all the staff on trauma-informed care practices in regards to focusing on like strengths-based relationships with the youth and focusing on their youth strengths more than their weaknesses to help build rapport amongst staff and youth here at Covenant House.
My name is Mark Mushiri, and I'm 17 years old, and I've been at the Covenant House for almost a year now.
My name is Christian Grant. I'm 18 years old. I've been at the Covenant House for almost like 6 or 7 months now. I come from a rough history, you know. I was doing school, then I went to Job Corps, and that ended up not working out very well. So that's how I ended up here. And I heard about this due to Ms. Tylynn because I was already doing work and she told me about it. So I was like, hey, I'd be up for it.
Yeah, so we're all excited to be a part of the discussion today. Thank you guys.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you so much for the youth to be able to be a part of this conversation. I know a lot of times when we have these panels, I mean, I still feel like I'm really young, but a lot of times it's the adults that are on, you know, these panels, and we don't have an opportunity to hear from the people I think that are usually affected the most by the people who are in positions of power. And so we thank you for, I think, the courage to be able to participate and to be able to speak and to listen and to learn. And so for this format, it's going to be about 60 minutes, a little bit over 60 minutes. It's going to be divided into 3 parts. So part 1 is going to talk about the impact on the Black community, particularly the Black Covenant House youth. Part 2 is going to talk about specifically de-escalation techniques that are employed by the police in order to avoid police brutality. And then part 3 will talk about police accountability and culture. So let's get into it. If we do have time for it, we will allow some questions from the audience. So going into our first section, for members of the Black community, especially young Black people, there's a lot of fear that they are treated as dangerous by police and harshly by the justice system simply for being Black. So my question, the question for the panel, what type of training do you think police officers should have to address this fear? I'll open it up first for Constable Rosen and then for the rest of the panel.
Well, I can start by saying that what people feel is their perception of how they feel. So it's gotta be real. So nobody should ever question the way somebody feels towards our profession in particular. So we've got to be cognizant of that ourselves. I can tell you that training wise, there is a tremendous amount of training, and some agencies go beyond what is required per the state rules and go beyond that. So, for instance, we have culture diversity training that all officers go through. I happen to implement implicit bias training to all of our officers because we all have biases. Whether people acknowledge it or not, we all have them. And so until you learn how to deal with the bias and recognize it, we're not gonna move forward. We also have state mandated training that goes into biases. I have every officer in my department has required to wear a body cam because I want that transparency. I want to see how our officers are treating the public. And our supervisors routinely audit that, absent any kind of a complaint or anything that someone may bring into the office saying, I was mistreated or I was dealt with disrespectfully. I have them proactively look and pick officers just randomly and just look at their body cam to see exactly how they're treating the public. So as an administrator of a law enforcement agency, I try to do everything I can to see and make sure that the officers are acting consistent with policy, with good ethics, and really getting rid of those implicit biases. I've implemented things to where I want my officers, when they first go through the field training officer program that every officer goes through, I make them go to neighborhoods that they may not know about and learn the culture, learn what goes on in the different neighborhoods, get to meet people, get to understand each other's way of life and cultural uniqueness and all of that. And so that's part of the training that I do, at least at my department, is I want that exposure. I don't want people learning for the first time or seeing something for the first time or not. Maybe they're from another town, maybe they're from another state, and I like them to see the richness of the diversity that we have here. And so it's a requirement to go in the various communities, get to know the culture, get to learn about these things, so that when you do interact, you become more of that culture. And so it's part of the curriculum here. It's part of the training. I also am writing the policy for all 8 constables on the use of force. What happened to George Floyd was atrocious. It was unconscionable. And there's no law enforcement administrator in this country that would condone what happened there. There's just not. And so I wish I could have been there to stop him. But what we have to do as administrators is catch bad officers before they get to our profession. Make sure that when they do get in our profession, if they've slipped through, is have procedures in place to identify them. And so we've set that up as policy to where if we see somebody that may say something racially charged in a body cam video, they're immediately brought in with a group that's here. Actually, Erica Davis heads that up, and we delve into them and find out exactly, is there really a problem here? And then they're put on a phased program to where we watch them for 6 months. They don't know that we're watching them, but we're watching them. So I just want the youth to know this. That's the most important thing. I deeply care about the youth, and I can tell you that we want to get to bond with you more and understand your concerns more. You've got people on the other side of the table that do care, and so the training is we're even giving more training. But every one of our cars, every one of our officers has body cam, video cam, everything, and having that transparency is the most important thing. I also require our officers to stop and talk to the public twice every hour, because you can't get to know a community by sitting in a seat of a car, driving around and waving at somebody. I want them to stop. I want the citizens to get to know the officers that patrol their neighborhood. So Lee Brown started the community-oriented policing model. We've done that here, and we're going to continue to expand that because it worked. So we've got to break down the barriers. We've got to break down and understand each other's culture and get to know each other on a much deeper level and have these kind of discussions.
Yeah.
And I think also, Audia, just to add on, I know you're familiar with this question, but I just want to make sure that the audience is aware of it. So same question for you, but also because of your experience, what type of training should prosecutors and judges have in addressing the distrust that is between the Black community and the actors in the justice system?
Yeah, so I'm glad you wrapped that in, because I was gonna pull it all together. I've been on a significant amount of panels talking about this, and most recently on the Muslim Bar Association, we were talking about this very topic. One of the first things I've always told people, even when I was running, it's about knowing your history. So for all the young adults that are out there that are watching, the ones that are sitting there with Miss Tylynn, that are at home or wherever you're watching from, the most important thing you can do is know what things are rooted in and why they are the way they are. So one of the things I used to always say is, we need to know policing. Policing is something that evolved from slave catching. And since that time, it has never been changed. The system has never been reworked. We do, again, have some good people that are within the system. But when you have a system that's established and built on something like that, we are going to continue to have the same issues that we have. But again, it's not fair to just point the finger at the police, because it takes all of us. We are essentially a machine that runs the criminal justice system. So I think a lot of times when we misplace and point fingers and say, well, it's the prosecutors, it's the judges, it's the police. No, it's all of us that make up this system that have played our part in failing the Black community. And when I say failing the Black community, when we look at the numbers, here in Harris County, the African-American population is 13%. I always used to tell people we're 13% of the population. We're 50% of the jail population. And 75% of people that sit in the Harris County jail are in there for nonviolent, typically either drug-related or mental health-related issues. So these are people that are not violent offenders. You do have, as a prosecutor, and Alvin can attest to this, and Constable Rosen can attest to this, we absolutely some violent offenders out there that do belong in jail, no matter their race, religion, creed, or gender. But the overwhelming majority of people that are sitting in jail right now are either Black or Hispanic, are lower income, come from typically unstable backgrounds, and have never really received the help that they truly need. So that's number one. Number two, when we look at our criminal justice system and the prosecution and the judges, well, when we look back at history, and thing for a lot of the young adults that introduce themselves when in your downtime, it's COVID now. This is a good time to read a book called The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander. It will give you some wonderful facts and history. Knowing your facts will help you get ready for your future. And one of the things that you need to know is that the criminal justice system was built after slavery ended. And it was in order to create what were known as Jim Crow laws. And it was to criminalize Black individuals to, again, get that free labor back. So it really ties in a lot to money. So you get the free labor back. And a lot of people don't even know that right now under the Constitution, slavery hasn't even been abolished. Under the 13th Amendment, if you are considered a criminal, if you are, once you are convicted, you essentially become a slave to the state that you are imprisoned in. And you can take a look at that. We read that with the Muslim Bar Association, and those are attorneys. And we literally sat there and they were like, Audia, I can't believe most people don't even know this. So that's very, very important to know. And so, what Constable Alan Rosen and others like him are doing, I think that's wonderful. But it's going to take more on a larger scale, and we're going to have to all work together on the same page. So again, when we look, a lot of times you'll hear panels or articles, they'll talk about, well, the police are doing something wrong. Well, we have to look further. Now, once people get past the police, charges here in Harris County can't even be accepted if the prosecutors don't accept it. So if we're saying we have a district attorney who is not on the same page, or moving forward progressively to equal out the playing field, those charges will be accepted, and then from there you go into the court system. Now, once you get into the court system, you go in front of the judges. I've worked with a number of those judges, and I've seen very, very racially biased judges. I've dealt with ones that were great people. And I think the most important thing to remember, this system is made up of people, and people are inherently imperfect. So again, when we look at the different laws, the different rules, the police, we need to look at every single piece that makes up the criminal justice system, why we have certain rules in place. And again, the war on drugs was something that caused our prison population to essentially go from 200,000 to 2 million in just under 20 years. So just under 2 decades, our prison population jumped from 200,000 to nearly 2 million. And here in the United States, I believe we have 5% of the world's population, but we house 25% of the world's prison population. That's not a coincidence. The system's not broken. It's working the way it was designed to work when it was originally created. I believe it's time that we recenter what our real focus is, and reestablish some ground rules and essentially just start from the beginning. So, it's Alvin, to answer your question directly, what can prosecutors do? I think one thing people don't know is, and for the young adults out there, prosecutors have an enormous amount of power, and these are people that are coming straight out of law school, that may have never experienced a day in their life when they've gone hungry. They've never experienced, some of the young adults that have introduced themselves, there are prosecutors that have never seen what you guys have seen. You guys are very, very strong. You guys can make it. You can do whatever it is that you want to do. The reason I say that is because we're raising our 12-year-old niece now. So you never know when you're one step away from succeeding or being in the position that you guys were in before you got to the Covenant House. So one of the things we need to do is just like they're doing implicit bias training in Precinct 1, the constable's office, the same thing needs to happen in the prosecutor's office. We need to have implicit bias training, but more than training, I believe it's hands-on. So team up with organizations like the Covenant House, come out there, meet with the youth, see what kind of issues that you all face, what you guys face as 15-year-olds, 16, 17, that are, in addition to education, now you have the stress of trying to make a living and provide for yourself and provide housing. That is something that no child should have to do, but we know it's realistic, and it's something that will make you stronger. But I think prosecutors need to have that person-to-person interaction, because right now what they typically have is a person to a file or person to paper interaction, and it's easy to treat someone inhumanly when you don't have a true personal tie to those individuals. So that's one of the things that I think can be done for the judges. It appears that our voting in Harris County has gotten better. So what I've seen is, they've done better, absolutely have done better. It seems like the tides are turning. And the reason I say that is the misdemeanor bail. We won't go into that. But, there are some other things that are happening. But you guys just keep your eyes open. I know you're young adults. It's almost time for you guys to vote. It's super important. So know your history, know your facts, and know what people are doing. Make sure their actions match their words. So same as with friends, if their handshake doesn't match their smile, don't believe it, no matter what they look like.
Thank you. For both of those contributions, I thought a lot of great points were being made. I do want to give an opportunity for Tylynn and any of the youth if they want to jump in on this part of the question before we move on to the next section.
Yes. Christian, you have something to say about the
members of the Black community, especially the Black community. Honestly, I think I think that they should have the training of like something like where when they talk to people, they have a lot more respect. They don't jump to conclusions. They give you time to explain yourself or something, Like for those who are non-lethal, like I could be walking down the street and I look like a suspect and they just automatically like come out guns ready to shoot, you know, like they give me a chance, you know, like I'm obviously unarmed, you know, no need for excessive force. That's what puts so much fear in Black people nowadays because they use so much excessive force against us because, oh, we look alike, we're all the same, you know, typical stereotypic stuff like that. And I think that it would be a lot better that if they had the proper training to deal with every situation, no matter the race, that, it would put a lot more hope in people instead of fear.
And those schools, they should teach us more about the police because as growing up as kids, they should educate us more about the police because as growing up, some children are taught the police are not good, just hate them.
I believe, Constable Rosen, did you want to follow up on any of those comments before we move on to the next section?
Yes.
Very briefly, please.
Thank you so much. I hear you, and you're right. There has been times in which African American youth have been stopped in the neighborhood, and they're like, "Why are you stopping me?" So we do this at our teen summit too, by the way. So here's what happens, the process, just so that everyone knows. So a complaint comes in, a call comes in from a citizen that says, I had somebody jump in my yard, and they'll describe them as a white male, a Hispanic male, African American male, and that may be the only information that the officer has to, or dispatcher has to tell the officer. So the officer goes to the call for service, and unless the citizen gives more data, like the person's wearing a white shirt or a green shirt or an orange shirt and, white pants or gray pants or whatever, that's all they have to go on. So I've put together a policy in our office, at least, where most dispatchers do ask a lot of questions. I make mine go even further because he's right. There's nothing worse than being an person walking down the street and law enforcement shows up and starts asking you questions that already makes you feel guilty, already makes you feel on edge. And so we have to, and I've at least instituted this at my office. We did this as it's called when the call drops. And we go through an exercise so that people understand that most of the information that we get from citizens that are calling in about a call for service. And I make our dispatchers just go even further with more description, facial hair, no facial hair, glasses, no glasses. You just try to get it right. And I'll tell you this, I think there are some officers that abuse that. We're not a perfect profession. I want the youth to know that we're not, but I can tell you that we want to improve it. We want to get better, and we have to lead by that way. And so our dispatchers ask those questions, and often we have very little information to go on when you're actually traveling to the call for service. They're always updating the computer with new information that they may or may not have. So I appreciate you saying that. Body cams and audio cameras in cars really help us get to see what our officers are doing. But it's just like a parent, when a parent sends a child away to school and anything the child does reflects poorly on the agency. So anything a bad officer does reflects poorly on the whole profession. So we're trying to do better, and doing programs like this and listening to people, listening to the youth that are participating in this helps us develop a better program and become more connected to, and we just need more of it. We need to dialogue more. We need to talk more.
Okay, thank you. We're going to move on to the to the next section here, talking about, so we're going to get a little bit more granular and talk a little bit more about, de-escalation techniques. Under the leadership of Constable Rosen, Precinct 1 has been extremely responsive to and supportive of Covenant House, Texas on a regular basis. They arrive on campus, utilizing successful de-escalation techniques to calm residents and avoid undue conflict. Even in situations when a youth has to be detained, officers have used techniques to ensure the safety of all those involved. The question here, and again, this is going to be directed at Constable Rosen, what de-escalation techniques are taught to police in order to prevent excessive use of force? And also, are there de-escalation techniques that should be adopted more broadly by police agencies?
Yeah, I don't think you can get too much training in de-escalation. Our officers take verbal judo, where they're taught by people on how to best communicate to people and de-escalate things. And most of the time, the situation that we're running into is kind of people feeling excited. So the officer's job is to calm everything down. And when you see unprofessional officers that are out there that allow their own emotions to take over is when things kind of get out of hand. And so these things are taught. Verbal judo's taught. I think we need to look further and deeper and provide even more training of that so that you have all kinds of things. I remember I served mental health warrants in the early 90s, and our goal, and these people were very ill, many of which we picked up, and they were in a very bad crisis situation. But our goal, our singular goal, was to use our words to get the person to comply. And it didn't matter how long. In fact, I went on one 2 nights ago myself, and this gentleman, all he wanted was someone to listen to him. And we took our time, and even when he got excited, we calmed things down. And that's what has to happen is talking to people, de-escalation techniques, and there can be improvements on that. The verbal judo classes that we take, I think they're good. I think the implicit bias classes that we train in could be better. I don't think they do enough to really stimulate enough conversation in the room about our own implicit biases. So it's taught. It is training that we do. I think we need more of it. I think we need to improve upon other de-escalation techniques. And mental health, Audio is right. Mental health is a huge problem in our county in particular, and there just hadn't been proper funds spent on mental health. And she's right. People that are mentally ill do not need to go to jail. That's not the place that's going to heal them. To spend dollars on housing somebody that really truly needs mental health help, it's a greater investment. It's a better investment to have somebody that goes to a mental health treatment facility and gets that. So we do train on that, the de-escalation techniques. It needs to improve. We need to enhance it even further and make sure that every officer goes through that every year, or if we have to go through it every 6 months. There needs to be even more of it. When you touch something once a year or every 2 years, you often lose the effectiveness of the training because you're not practicing it enough. So we role play in our training. So we have scenarios to where we have mocked scenarios in a room where things escalate and get out of hand, and the officer, and we gauge how the officer handles the escalation of the problem. And there are the continuum of force things that the public really didn't know about. And so there's a continuum of force based on the situation. So it's not, you go through all these different continuums of force and you only use the force policy-wise necessary to affect, if you're going to arrest somebody, to affect the arrest. So there needs to be more of it is the right answer. And we need to do it more often.
Yeah, thank you. And then for one of the youth members, if they'd like to give their comments on this question.
Okay, so I had a real serious point, like based on history, you know, and for those who have watched Straight Outta Compton, like during the time of trouble, there's always been issues with police brutality, crime against Black, rioting, looting, all of this, and then amidst all of this, a pandemic. Like in that timeline, there was a pandemic. There was all this going on. Now in our timeline in 2020, there's the same thing going on. And I think a valid point is that history always repeats itself unless we make a change that would greatly impact the timeline to where it would spin off into another timeline that's a lot brighter and a lot better for everyone. You know?
Alvin, can I make a comment? Okay, I thank you so much for that comment. I mean, it couldn't have been, I'm like, both of you guys have a very bright future. I'm like, are you running for Congress?
That's what we hope they're doing.
Okay, good. No, I think the point that you just made was spot on. A lot of people recognize the fact, like when we look back on the timeline, when we're looking back on shows, news reports from 1980s, 1960s, it was the same exact thing. We had the police brutality going on, but it wasn't as highly publicized or highly captured as it is now because of technology. And again, it's not fair for me to just say police brutality because again, we have so many other actors that are in that criminal justice wheel that play their part in this failure. And I think because we see the police are on the front lines, this is what I will say to you. I think what you said was perfect. I think what COVID really did, to be honest, it was such a double-edged sword, but it caused us to move away from the distractions of professional basketball games, professional football games. We can no longer go out to clubs. We're no longer distracted by all these things that are going on in the community. And we're really forced and have it really in our face where we have to address it, where we watched this man be murdered, slowly, 8 minutes, 46 seconds of watching somebody with somebody else's knee on his throat for 8 minutes, 46 seconds. Not only that, but actually called out to his deceased mother. And you know what the sad thing was when I saw that video, I said, this is not the first time this has happened. We've had people here in Harris County, a number of people that have been seem like were harmless, blameless, that have been killed by police brutality. And I knew he wasn't going to be the last person to have that happen. So you're right. I think until we take a real approach and stop continuing to do insanity is doing the same things over and over and over again and expecting different results. So the reason I can actually say I support what Constable Alan Rosen is talking about is because he's taking a different approach in his precinct. So that's why I say I'm like, listening to him talk and and seeing it in his actual precinct, I'm like, okay, I like what he's doing because they're actually doing something different. The problem is we need the rest of Harris County and the country to join suit and to do something different. So when we continue to say, well, we'll create police oversight boards, well, those aren't doing anything. We have that here, and not to be too particular, but what accountability do we have? Have we held prosecutors accountable? Again, when I talk to you about, I know sometimes it might be difficult when you're at the age that you guys are at right now, where you don't understand fully how the criminal justice system works. I promise you, I urge you. And when I tell you we make our 12-year-old need to read books like The New Jim Crow and Medical Apartheid, it is so important. And you can come back and thank me when you guys are 20 and 25 and ahead of your peers, because the fact that you made that comment, you're already ahead of your peers because you're cognizant of what's going on in the world. But you're right. History will continue to repeat itself until we do something different, until we get new people in these positions, until we start holding people that are just more of lip service and get in those positions and don't do what they're supposed to do. Once we start holding them accountable, and accountability looks different in different ways. And that's why I said voting is important. So for you, for the young man that just made that comment, If you're like, hey, we keep seeing the same things over and over again. Okay, well, let's look at each role and each responsibility. Who is held accountable to who? We know, for instance, let's take the HPD chief. That's not an elected position. He's selected by the mayor. Okay, now if you know that, and if you have an issue, now you go address the mayor, or you vote for somebody different, or you take a different approach. And then if we say, okay, well, who makes the state laws? Well, you need to know and understand who is making those laws, who voted for particular laws, going back and reading into it, doing your own research. Don't depend on what, the general news tells you. Panels like this, watching information, but reading it for yourself. One thing law school definitely teaches you is to go double check your information for yourself. So I appreciate the fact that you said that and you recognize it. But what COVID did, again, it slowed us down in 2020. It brought us back to reality. These things have continued to go on. I think not even 2 days after George Floyd was killed, the young man was murdered in Atlanta, Georgia, shot by police. And a couple days before that, we saw Ahmaud Arbery, and as the mother of a young Black man, and he's a young Black boy, but he will be a young Black teenager, and the wife to a Black man. It is disgusting to have watched that young kid get killed by 2 shotgun shells to the chest, close up. That somebody could do something like that is if they are looking at us as not being human. I think one of the things is bridging the gap. Again, what Constable Alan Rosen had stated is that his deputies go out and talk to the community twice in every hour. One of the things that I had actually proposed when I was running was having prosecutors and officers. Again, like I said, we cannot point the finger without looking at the man in the mirror first. Is having prosecutors and officers go out to the schools in areas that are predominantly affected, which is typically the Black and Hispanic and lower income communities. But putting that face-to-face interactions, actually going out there without your uniform on, maybe not having our suit on, maybe not having the police uniform on. So the things, and I think the other young man made the comment, he said, we're taught to hate police. And I appreciate you sharing that. That was very, it took a lot of courage, especially having an elected constable on this panel. I think that we can appreciate that. So one of the things that we need to do, instead of pushing back on somebody who says something like that, is say, okay, we need to bridge that gap and start getting these officers and start getting these prosecutors out there to make a face-to-face connection in these communities when there are not events that call for forceful reinforcement. That's one thing. But again, like I said, accountability is going to be huge to really changing the dynamics of things, because if not, you're right, in 2040, we're going to be looking back at a video saying, okay, we see this rioting, looting, another, Black person's being killed on camera, and what are we going to do? We turn off the TV and then we go hang out, or we go to an NBA game, we go to an NFL game, and it's forgotten about the next day. So we have to start taking accountability. We have to start holding people accountable. We have to start paying attention. And again, reading, knowledge, understanding. When you understand what the problem is, you can talk about it realistically. It may hurt. It may be painful. When you have a cut or a wound that has been infected, you have to dig out the bad part to get to the pain. Then you put the medicine on, and then you can really start healing. So once we start doing that, I think we'll start seeing the changes. But until then, you're right, it's just going to continue to cycle.
So this question, and I want to mention this because you touched on it, Audia. So this question is for you, and then I'll open it up for the rest of the panel. Precinct 1 has been a model of responsive relations between law enforcement and persons of all races. However, looking at the broader city, state, national picture, what are the current policies in place to address police brutality in general and against members of the Black community?
Well, I think one of the biggest issues that I've seen, and again, I can speak. And so remember, for the young adults who are watching, remember I was telling you guys, you have to understand the roles that each person plays, right? So if we have police officers who are the first step with the community, the first step in the criminal justice system, the next step is typically the prosecutors in the district attorney's office. So the district attorney's office, their typical role is to hold, to make sure that justice is done and to make sure to oversee the safety of the community in general. What we have unfortunately seen is that people with the most power in our communities are actually held to the lowest standards. And people with the least amount of power are held to the highest standards, which would go back to what the comment that the two of you made, like, hey, we're harassed, we're stopped. Why are we treated like this? That's one of the things, and that's a fact. That is a fact. So again, we see a lack of accountability. The fact that, again, Constable Rosen is taking accountability within his own precinct, I think that's phenomenal. I think what needs to be done overall in Harris County is that we need to have a district attorney who makes policies where individuals are held on the same exact level at the very least, and that's something that we have not seen. I can give you an example, and I'm sure Alvin is aware. I won't go into the name of the case, but we had a deputy's husband who held down, who choked this young Hispanic kid to death in front of his wife and his 2-year-old daughter. And again, having a 3-year-old son and being married, I can't even, like, my mind is not even, it's hard to even put my mind there. But literally choked this young guy to death in front of his family. And his wife, who was a deputy, held his hands down. And when we look at the facts and say, okay, we have young Hispanic and Black men that are, and women that are ages 17 and up that are in prison for the rest of their lives for simply driving a getaway car under the same doctrine of being essentially an accessory, right? When we look back at what happened to the deputy, the district attorney dismissed her case, I think about 2 to 3 weeks before trial, and stated, hey, she needs to go back home and raise her children. So, there is an imbalance of accountability. There is absolutely no accountability. And we can't just point fingers and say, oh, it's the police, because it's not just the police. It's the lack of accountability at the district attorney's level. They are single-handedly, in most states, in most counties, are the most powerful actors and actresses in our criminal justice system. The problem is media a lot of times doesn't talk about that. So when you guys watch TV, when you're watching things, and Alvin, I'm sure you've gotten this question a lot. I actually wrote a blog post on it. Most of the jurors that will raise their hand. So you have people that sit on these juries, and they're just like you guys. They come in, no legal background. They 9 times out of 10, they used to raise their hand and ask me, they'd be like, excuse me, ma'am, is this going to be like CSI? Is this like Law and Order? Oh, is this going to be like, what's that show with 50 Cent, where Angela Valdez used to go out and do all that? I'm like, since when does a prosecutor investigate a crime scene? We don't.
Yeah, power.
It's not realistic, but the unfortunate reality is most Americans watch about 14 hours of television a day. So when they stop young men that look like you, they're stopping young men that look like you because that's what they've seen on TV. When they stop, young men that look like my brother, they're saying, okay, they're murderers, robbers, rapists, and killers. When we see people like Alvin Adjei, whose mother Constable Rosen just spoke about, and Alvin, went to Notre Dame, it really does not matter what your underlying is, because we know so much society rests on what they believe and what they see from television. So we have to take a lot of that into account. But again, back to Alvin's question so I can wrap up my answer, we really need to start holding our powerful actors, period, accountable. So I don't want to just single out and say police officers. I've always said powerful actors, period. So people that we entrust as a community, as parents, as young adults who are voting, as young people that live here, you guys have a right to stand up and make your voices heard. But we have a right that people that we give so much power to need to, at the very least, be held to the same standards as everybody else. And that's really my answer to that, Alvin.
Thank you. And this next question is for Constable Rosen. I know you probably want to comment on the previous question, but I do want to ask this one too, because I do think that it's really important and it's jumped into the conversation. There's a nationwide discussion about defunding police and decreasing police budgets nationwide due to the string of recent incidences, including George Floyd. Could a reallocation of certain police funds help to improve society? For example, portions of police funding being transferred to social worker organizations. So I want to give you the opportunity to comment.
Yeah, I think first, I think that defunding police and all that is not really the narrative. I mean, really, the narrative is investing in social service work, investing in mental health treatment, investing in drug treatment. And at least here in the state of Texas, the mental health side, at least in Harris County, has not been funded appropriately for years. And right now at the Harris County Psychiatric Center, they haven't even opened these beds yet. They're about to open for the first time in 2020, 11 psychiatric drug treatment beds in the Harris County Psychiatric Center. 11. They didn't have any prior to 2020. So, you know, where kids need to get help, where resources are, it is terribly important. Funding education. That's the most paramount thing we can do, is fund education and have those dollars spent in a wise way that helps our youth become educated, learning our history, stopping some of the generational curses that are going on, fixing some of these problems. I can tell you that law enforcement, the reason that a lot of the big agencies have gotten away from community-oriented policing and networking and bonding with the community is because they don't have resources. Houston Police Department is down about 1,500 officers. How frustrated is the community when they call if they've had a traffic accident and an officer never shows up? It's frustrating. So I think the movement is important to have the discussion of things that our state, our country, our local communities need to fund. Covenant House would be a great place to have a program that is funded by the government that helps with more social services to keep kids and put kids in an environment where they're going to thrive and do well. I can just tell you, I'm against, it's not for my personal reasons. It's not because of my position. I can just tell you that blaming one profession or another, Audia, you've done a beautiful job today of laying out the discussion of this. And I really have. I didn't know you as well, but I just really love what you say. But I can tell you that we have to invest in social service programs. We have to invest in programs that are diversion programs. So having somebody that is a criminal trespasser or a habitual criminal trespasser. I co-chaired the Harris County Criminal Justice Coordination Council for years, whose sole mission is to reform the system. And everybody in that room is committed to doing something about it, but you got to put the dollars where they're going to make the most sense. And for instance, we have social workers that ride with police officers whose job it is when they go out to a scene and somebody is exhibiting signs of mental illness, there's a social worker component that assesses the person. And rather than take them to a jail facility where they're not going to get the help they need, they divert them to a mental health treatment facilities. We have to expand programs like that. We have to expand social services program like at Covenant House and other places where people really have resources to achieve their greatness, achieve the goals that they need to. I don't think defunding the police, I think that they should fund programs within police departments that are community-oriented police models. So there were programs that used to work wonderfully at police departments, the GREAT program, Coffee with a Cop, programs that enabled officers and youth to get together, and adults to get together and bond and get to know the officer, not just as somebody wearing a uniform, but somebody who was a father, a son, a brother, and humanize law enforcement versus what's out there on in the movies, and all the stuff that goes on with that. I mean, we're human beings. We are we make mistakes. We're not perfect. This profession will never be perfect. Audia's right about the criminal justice system. I've never understood this, and I ask this question all the time. How is it that an African-American male, a Hispanic male, and a white male charged with the exact same crime with the exact same background get a different result in punishment? How is that possible? It should all be the same. If the African-American should be treated the exact same way an Anglo person should be treated, the results should be very similar. There should not be stark differences in the criminal justice system with regards to punishment. Yet there is. And nobody's focusing on that. Nobody is focusing on those disparities. We created a racial ethnic disparity group in our Criminal Justice Coordination Council to focus exclusively on that particular topic. So yes, the answer is defunding police is not going to be the answer. It's not. I can tell you that the communities I go to, and I go to all communities in my precinct, and people are not calling for defunding police. They want the police there, but they want the best trained. They want somebody that understands their community, understands the culture, understands the struggles that have happened in the neighborhoods, and until you get to that foundational understanding of the different cultures that we have here in Houston and Harris County, there's going to be this conflict. And until we start having, I do a program with Chauncey Glover every year at TSU. We have 7 white officers, and he has 35. He calls them mentees, and he mentors these young men, and they're all African American young men. And first question he asks is of the kids, what do you see in these white officers? And it creates a dialogue. It creates an environment where that discussion can start happening. And, one of my guys said the thing, it was a big officer. He said, you don't know me and I don't know you. We don't know each other. We're not friends. We're not family, nothing. But I would put my life on the line to protect you. And it broke it down for that young man that, everybody in a uniform is not bad. And so it just, we've got to just break down these barriers. We've got to break down these generational curses where things are being transferred from grandma to mom to children, and just change the dialogue one person at a time, one family at a time, one community at a time. And I'm committed to doing it, and I have been doing it, and I'm going to continue to do it because it's the right thing to do.
Well, we're getting towards the end of for the section 2, but I did, because mental health has been talked about, I did, before we moved on to section 3, wanted to give Covenant House an opportunity to comment on this question, in particular towards programs for helping people who are suffering from mental health.
Did you make your point first?
I just wanted to, real quick, add on to what the last topic we were talking about, regarding to bridging the gap between police and community, like stuff like that. I feel like yeah, we're trying our best to do this, but like I feel like it would be better for the community to take initiative to want to do things like that, because if we show that's what we want, like peace and trust in between the community and the police, then I feel like that would show the police like, oh, hey, they're not so bad, something like that. I guess, I don't know, and it would make them want to do the things that they need in order to bridge that gap. And I feel like if one party takes initiative, then it would possibly make the other party want to do the same.
the mental health piece. So serving as the mental health liaison here for all of the youth, just and going back to what Constable Rosen said, I'm glad that they are opening up more psychiatric beds because what I come to find when we do have certain youth here that have more severe mental health diagnoses than the resources that we have to offer them, I refer them out to additional resources, and I'm always hitting a wall because there's not enough resources for people who have mental health diagnoses. So I'm referring to the same places, like HCPC is one place I refer to. NPC is another place I refer to. But for people that need more long-term treatment to help with their mental health diagnoses, there's not enough things in the community to help those individuals, right? So you still get that cycle of repeating itself, or their cycle of them kind of still maybe, for example, maybe committing the same crimes, right? So if they had that additional help with the treatment, that would be great. So I'm glad that they are opening up more psychiatric beds, but I think we will need more than 11, just given everything that's kind of going on in the world and given everything in regards to how everyone is seeing mental health as a severe thing that we kind of turned a blind eye to before. But I'm kind of glad that the topic of mental health is being more talked about, and maybe things have maybe changed, and maybe more funding can go to mental health resources and things like that. And then the CERT team also comes out to Covenant House as well too, because sometimes I do have to call the CERT team to get additional help with some of the youth that we may work with that have mental health diagnoses. But having a program like that where people are trained within that has been, just from my experience, has been helpful. And they come in calmly, they come in, they assess the situation, and they actually just talk to them as a regular human being, and then let them know that they're gonna transport them to get the additional help that they need. So if we have more programs like CERT team and things like that, and like Constable Rosen said, like having a social worker come in with police as well too, I think that'll be something that'll be great to continue to have to kind of help de-escalate these situations that we do have here at Covenant House and just overall in general.
And then, Alvin, I know we're about to move on. Can I make a brief comment, really quick, about the mental health piece?
Very briefly.
Okay. And then I do want to touch on what Constable Rosen said. For the kids, for you guys that are listening, I think the whole defund the police, it's nothing more than a cool hashtag right now. It's not. I don't believe it's anything that's realistic. And so, it can be easy for us to get caught up, or for you guys at your age to kind of say, okay, it's cool to say defund the police, but what does that look like? I do completely agree. I think we need to fund more programs that go to mental health issues. And a lot of people don't know, when we talk about the facts, and I talk about the facts, the Harris County Jail is the largest mental health facility in the state of Texas. So keep that in mind. The Harris County Jail, the jail, is the largest mental health facility in the state of Texas. And I think when we get to a point where we're no longer patting our county on the back for saying, and I appreciate your statement, I think she's the mental health facility, mental health coordinator. We can't pat them on the back for opening 11 beds. I mean, I'm just going to be very honest. We're in the third largest county in the United States. 11 beds is ridiculous. For the fact that we will send more people, and I've seen it, and I've been a part of it until I recognized what we were doing, where we have people that are coming in, getting sentenced to 10, 15, 20 days for criminal trespass because they're mentally ill and because they're homeless is not the answer. And we keep doing the same things over and over again, and 11 beds is going to do absolutely nothing. Now, the thing is, talking to Constable Alan Rosen, remember when I told you it's important to know who controls what? He's doing his part with Precinct 1. If you want to be heard on the mental health piece, the best thing to do is go to Commissioner's Court. Now, Commissioners Court holds their meetings every, I think it's Tuesday. They're trying to change the time. I'm sure you guys can get that information to them, Alvin. But Commissioners Court, they hold the purse strings in Harris County. They give you an opportunity to speak during every Harris County Commissioners meeting, and you can get a chance to say, hey, we're asking for more resources to be put towards mental health, because this is what I believe will help our community reduce the incarceration rates, make our communities more safe. So that's hope is not a method. The best thing to do is take action. So I'm glad you're writing that down, and that's just a fact for you guys to know. The Harris County Jail right now is the largest mental health facility in the state of Texas, and 11 beds is nothing. Thanks, Alvin.
Thank you, Audia. And also, the Constable Rosen, he mentioned Chauncey Glover. The name of that organization is the Chauncey Glover Project. I was active in it last year as being a mentor, and so it's a great program. And I think it's also really great for the Covenant House youth that they can be active in that. If there's any way I can help to connect people, I'd be happy to do it. So as we hit our last section, we are going to be talking about police accountability and culture. This question is going to be directed at Constable Rosen. There is a lot of talk currently about how police unions are strong and are potentially protecting bad cops. Generally, how do you feel police unions can either help or hurt the culture of policing?
Constable Rosen, you're on mute.
Oh, I am? That's odd. Hold on one second. Am I back on?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Sorry. Well, I respect, unions and all that, and always have. I really take no direction from any police union. So as an administrator of a law enforcement agency, the union, obviously, they're going to speak about and fight for officers that are members of their union. But as an administrator, I look at the facts. My job is to weed out a bad officer. My job is to act when an officer does something inappropriate. That's my job, and I'm not going to let any union or any organization deter me from doing what I know is the right thing to do. So they advocate, and there's an important piece for them to advocate for. I get it, but in terms of them dictating or having some great influence over administrators of law enforcement agencies, that's just, we have to do what's right for the public. We have to do what's right for our departments. We have to do what's right for our profession. And so I respect the unions. I'm friendly with the unions. But if an officer that works for me violates the law, violates policy, has racist or feelings or any biases that are affecting his job or his judgment, it's incumbent upon me to act on that. And I will act every single time, and make no mistake about it. And so they have a role. They do advocate for their members. They sometimes advocate when they maybe shouldn't advocate. When something's just wrong, it's wrong. If something's not working right or an officer misbehaves, I understand you have a role, but for me, I'm just not going to take any unions, any organization. I'm going to look at the facts. I'm going to look at the evidence. I'm going to look at what happened, and I'm going to act in the best interest of my department and on the community that I serve. So I work for the people. I don't work for any organization. I don't work for the union. I work for the people. They are my boss, and I don't ever forget it. And so I have to be held accountable to the people. And that's why those unions, while they're important, and I know they advocate, and I know they have benefits, and I know that they advocate for professionalism. I just can't. I am not beholden to anybody when it comes to weeding out a bad officer or dealing with a problem that's before me.
Audia? Same.
Okay. Yeah. And again, when I don't know something, I just kind of, I can be very honest. I'm not really familiar. I know what we've seen in the press as far as with the police unions and how they're typically, what we've seen is a lot of times they're on different pages from what I've observed on different pages in the active police agencies. So the fact that, we hear Constable Rosen saying, hey, I'm not beholden to them, that's not where my, responsibility lies. I think that's great. I think as long as we have something like that, not just in precinct 1, but in other with other police agencies. Now, I can't, I don't have any facts on that as far as which ones are listening to the police unions. I know their views can be very skewed. And I think, one of the reasons that we heard is because they have their own interests. What you have to remember is that groups and individuals are going to look out for self-interest first. But I think, when you're a true elected official whose main priority is the safety of the community, it is awesome. I can't even find a different word to hear them say, hey, my responsibility is to the public that I serve. So as far as that goes, I mean, I think if we have that across the board, I think we'll be in much better shape. At least we'll be one step closer to what the young congressman stated, and getting, one step closer to a continuous cycle of what we've seen from the 1920s all the way up to 2020. So.
Thank you. We are running up on time, and so I kind of want to give everyone an opportunity to kind of give their last thoughts and message that they want to give to the youth before we go up, because we do have to close by 11, and so I want to give it to Constable Rosen, give an opportunity to give any closing remarks he'd like to share.
Yeah, I thank you so much to the panelists, to Covenant House. I love your mission. I've been to your facility so many times. In fact, I was so moved by your gala that I hired a girl that had been trafficked from California, and she was one of your speakers. I ended up hiring her for a year, and we really mentored her here as well. So I believe in youth. I remember challenging somebody in the intake center there when I came to tour one night, and I remember telling the young man, if you stay in the Covenant House program and finish the program, I'm going to give you $1,000 and I'm going to get you a job. And unfortunately, I think he wasn't in the right frame of mind at the moment to really look at that opportunity. But I love your mission. Audia, you've blown me away. I look forward to working with you a lot more as the years come. In fact, I want to ask you and Alvin to be on a panel to review our use of force policy that I'm going to be putting out. So I'm publicly asking you, putting you on the spot to be a part of that. I think you guys are doing amazing work at keeping this discussion alive. To the youth, I want you to know that I wear a uniform, and I don't want to be judged by it. I want you to judge me for who I am as a man. And I can tell you, I deeply care about our youth. I have spent the last 7.5 years since I've been in elective office focusing on youth more than anything else that I do. And I am going to always champion what our youth are doing. You're the most important thing to the future of our country, of our county, of our city. And from what I've heard from some of the speakers today, y'all have a bright future. Embrace that future, and don't let anything get in the way of where you're going and what you're doing. The sky's the limit. And lastly, I can tell you that there's a lot of good officers that also care. Most of them are parents. Most of them are brothers and sisters and fathers and everything, all the above. And, I always say this, that, if you have 20 rotten apples on an apple tree and there's 1,000 apples on it, the whole tree doesn't need to be cut down because of those 20 bad rotten apples. It's incumbent upon me and law enforcement administrators to weed out those bad officers. And I want you to know I'm looking before we hire to weed them out. I'm looking at post their hiring to weed them out if there's a problem and identify those problem officers. We're trying to put together a program for the state. In fact, we're really spearheading that effort to where use of force things get reported to the state agency that holds our licenses. So when officers apply at different departments, we'll get to see how many use of force cases that they have. And I am creating all 8 constables in Harris County have asked me to write the policy for the use of force. And we're going to have, we're at the first phase of it. The second phase is each department is going to review what we've written. And the third phase is we're bringing in the public, which is why I asked Audia and Alvin to be a part of that committee. It's going to be a committee, a diverse committee of various walks of life. My friend, I've put together a group of LULAC, NAACP, faith-based leaders, community leaders, people that have been in jail, in the jail setting, all walks of life. I want them to look at this policy to make sure we get it right. And having that input and having that seat at the table to ensure that we get it right is the most important thing to me. And after it goes through that review, it then will be made public with input from the various communities. So we're forward thinking. I'm going to have youth. I'd like to have some youth on it as well. So we have a youth perspective that's asking questions, because invariably some of the things of our profession, we need to explain better. And I think if we explain things better, things will become a little clearer and people will understand some of the things that go on in our profession. Right now, I just don't think that people truly understand a lot of what we do. And so we have to educate. There has to be an educational component. So I'm going to have all walks of life on, and it's not just the use of force policy. I'm going to have a racial ethnic disparity coordinator in the office, and their job is going to be to review police body cam to see if there's any racial overtones, to see if there's any biases towards the LGBTQ plus community, to see if there's any other biases that are out there, identify that and put it on a watch. And so we're going to be doing some things that return to community-oriented policing. So keep the faith, keep the fight. Don't judge because I'm in this uniform. I can tell you I deeply care about you, and Covenant House, I'm whatever you got going, I'm in. So keep me involved, please. Thank you, Alvin, for being the moderator. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your comments and for also your courage in taking the opportunity to speak to the panel and to engage with the youth. Audia, I want to give you the opportunity.
Okay, and so I first want to thank the Covenant House. You guys are great. I got a chance to come to the sleep out. Was it the sleep out, Alvin? Sleep out. Okay, sleep out. Ended up meeting somebody that was on the board, and he was wonderful. So I love what you guys stand for. I love what you guys do to the youth. Thank you guys so much. I'm going to thank you guys second. Thank you for having the courage to come on here and really just speak very candidly. I can't give you the nickname of the congressman. I will give that young man the nickname of the senator, because I see you sit back and observe and you know, you tell it like it is. And I think, you know, if we have more adults like that and you know, you guys are going to be true leaders in your generation. So keep doing what you're doing. Don't ever become a circumstance of where you're coming from, because that's just part of your story. And so thank you to President James. Thank you for allowing Alvin to call me on here, and Alvin for inviting us. And of course, Constable Alan Rosen, leading by example. I mean, I'm just going to be honest with you guys, you know, and when I say you guys, I'm speaking to the younger group, you know, having gone through college and law school and the realities of being an adult and now being a parent. You know, one of the things that we always, and my husband is served 2 tours of duty in Iraq, and it's straightforward. So, and I played Division I basketball. So when I say I'm like straight, no chaser, that's just what I am. But you know, one of the biggest things that you can judge a person on is by their actions. And the fact that Constable Rosen, and trust me, I'm not giving him compliments just because I'm like, okay, he's like, I've really seen the way that Precinct 1 functions. I've seen the way that he interacts with the community. I've seen people that have worked for his precinct. I've spoken with them, and they literally are leading by example here in Harris County. And if we can just have that in the remaining parts of the county and countrywide, throughout the United States, we would be, like the young congressman said, we wouldn't be repeating history over and over and over again. So that's one of the things I want to state. But the second thing I want to leave you guys with, for you young people, you know, don't follow the crowd. You know, make sure that you're making your own decisions. Number one, reading is huge. And even if you do not have a parent or somebody there, you guys can reach out to me. I'll leave you with my contact information. You know, for mentorship, I can come over to the Covenant House and speak if you guys need me to. Whatever you guys need, you can reach out to me. You know, because I know a lot of times I look like I'm your age. I'm not, but, you know, but, you know, one of the things to remember is don't follow the crowd. Read your books. The New Jim Crow is amazing. I think as young Black men, I'm speaking specifically to you guys, you know, deal in reality, because that's what we have to teach our son when he gets past the age of 3. It's, you know, it doesn't matter that mommy ran for DA and is outspoken and is listened to. And it doesn't matter that daddy, you know, is an elected official. You know, at the end of the day, a lot of people are going to judge you based off the color of your skin. So you have to mentally be aware of that and then deal in that reality. It's unfortunate, but as long as we have people with differences, you're always going to be judged, whether it's sexuality, whether it's gender, whether it's race, whether it's an occupation. So you have to deal in that reality. When you deal in that reality, then you can make smart, informed decisions. So again, read your books, reduce the amount of television that you watch, because a lot of people that you interact with are going to watch significant amounts of television. If you have an issue, know who to go to. You know when the appropriate time to react is. You know who to speak with. I think I was telling, and I wish I knew her name, but I see she's still taking notes. I love it. Yep, she's still taking notes. But don't be afraid to ask the questions. Hey, who's in control of X? You know, you guys are making statements about funding or resources. Well, who do we talk to? Are the people on this panel the right people to talk to? Well, I can tell you no. County commissioners are, okay, and they're elected every 4 years, and you can go speak with them. You can go speak publicly, and there's no age cutoff. So for the young congressman and the young senator, you guys can go up there and speak and say, hey, I'm part of the Covenant House. I live this every day, and I can tell you that we will benefit in this county by more resources towards X, Y, Z. So don't be afraid to speak your mind. Be aware of the situation. And then, like I said, I can put my contact information. You guys can always reach me on my website. It's audiajones.com. I have my email address. It's always on my phone. And I'm always very responsive. And publicly to Constable Alan Rosen, the answer is yes. And continue doing what you're doing, because we need more people, period. Not even just elected officials. We just need more people like you. And the moment we start looking at each other as human beings is the moment we can actually start turning this ship around. So thank you, Covenant House. Thank you, Alvin. Thank you, James.
Beautiful job.
And Tylynn, I want to give you the opportunity to give any lasting remarks that you'd like to give.
I would just like to thank you all for this opportunity. The most important thing for me is just amplifying the voices of the youth. And so I'm just really proud of them for having the courage to share their thoughts and feelings on this platform. Thank you all for putting this together. Did you guys want to say anything?
This is my first time doing this.
You did a great job.
Yeah.
You did a great job.
This is also my first time doing this. I wasn't expecting a very responsive crowd. I was expecting some dull, bland, unassertive faces. You know, I was expecting the worst. I was expecting the worst. But I honestly, I like what's being done. You know, I like that we can come in here and we can talk about how we feel freely, because it's our opinion, it's how we feel, it's what we want. We want things to change. We don't want to stay in a cycle. You know, we want to change things for the better of the future. And what better way to start that than to talk about it? So I like this.
Yeah, and although it's their first time, I'm sure just being seen and being heard will be a great thing for both of them. So again, thank you all for allowing them to be here and to be heard and to be seen. All right.
And I believe that our fearless leader, Felicia Broussard, are you on?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Thank you. I just, as a listener on today's panel, I just can't be more proud of what I've heard, what I've seen, and more hopeful about what the future holds for our community, for our nation, under the leadership of everyone on this call. On behalf of Covenant House, Texas, I'd like to thank everyone, and including those who have tuned in and listened. We have folks from out of state, other Covenant House sites across our international federation, and we appreciate their participation as well. But specifically, I want to let the youth know how proud we are of you. This panel was arranged for us to talk about issues that directly impact the work and the mission of Covenant House. We love you, we respect you, and we are excited to see what happens next. And I believe your next step as young adults is to move into this, what you see on the panel. These two young men, Alvin and James, they're young professionals, not too much older than you. And I believe those could be your next steps as well. To James, Alvin, and George, and all of the young professionals who have worked every single week for over 2 months on this project. This has come to fruition because of you, and this is an outstanding demonstration of where our community can and is going. And then to Audia Jones, thank you so much for your time this morning and all of your brilliant words and insight. You also, I don't think that you mentioned that you've been on the campus of Covenant House, Texas to support our youth and our sleep out. And I appreciated meeting you that evening. You did not have to be there, and we are so honored that you are a part of this experience. And then Constable Rosen, our beloved advocate and friend, we really appreciate all that you do. You are a phenomenal leader in our community, and it has absolutely been seen here today. And we thank you and appreciate all that you do. You stop by when you don't have to. Your officers are a reflection of your leadership, and you are the promise of where our relations on this topic and many others, including human trafficking, are headed. And we thank you for that. I just want to say God bless you all, and God bless the work that we're going to do together. Thank you very much.
God bless you.
Yeah, thank you so much for your kind words. And again, just to reiterate, I thought that this was a phenomenal panel. I've been on several panels, and it's always great when you have really passionate and intelligent speakers who are prepared to bring a lot of substantive answers. So I think a lot of questions that a lot of people really want to get more information on. So again, thank you for being prepared. Thank you for your energy. Thank you for your time. And I'm glad that I get to leave the young professional board in James' capable hands. And with that, I'll let him close this.
Alvin, thank you so much. No, it's an honor. I'll keep it very short because I know we're 5 minutes over, but Constable Rosen, Audia, thank you guys so much. Everything you guys have said were literally pearls and wisdom and so impactful to our youth. You guys, again, it reiterates why we believe you guys are so special and bring so much to this world. Those questions, those insights, it's exactly why we do what we do. And for us, for those who are outside watching, if you have more interest in joining our organization, we're a bunch of young professionals. For myself, I'm in consulting. We're so in so many different fields, but we're all unified under one mission to really, really just be anti-racist, commit to solving racial inequality against members of our Black community and to our Black youth. And again, thank you guys so much for taking time out of the morning. This is really, really deep, but very important conversations that we're having, and we'd love to hear from you guys. So please, if you guys have more information on our board, email us. If you'd like to join, we'd love to have you. I think we're planning an event very soon after, a virtual event, since we can't go anywhere, and we don't want to get sick. So guys, again, thank you so much. Alvin, fantastic job. It's been such a privilege to learn under you, and I call you, a friend and brother of mine. You've always been there, and you're one of the reasons why, I joined this board and why I want to continue to lead it in the future. So guys, thanks again. And with that being said, have a great rest of the day and have a great weekend.